Getting introduced to a new Pokemon is so delightful, isn't it? It's the kind of thing that never gets old, and a big part of that first impression is a Pokemon's name. A Pokemon's name is obviously important because it really adds to the quality of a Pokemon's design, and it can really make or break how positively a Pokemon is perceived. Well, believe it or not, some Pokemon were originally going to have different names, in English anyway, than they ultimately received. We're going to be covering 10 of those Pokemon today, and showing how some were going to have better names than they ultimately got, and others were saved at the last second from having absolutely terrible names. Let's check it out. Stantler is a classic example of a Pokemon who could have been helped with a better name. While Stantler isn't a bad name, according to the man who translated the first 4 generations of Pokemon into English, Nob Ogasawara, he originally wanted to name Stantler Scaraboo instead, which coincidentally is also the name of one of my Pokemon in Pokemon Cardinal, which I also came up with before all of this came to light, just so you know. But anyway, Nob opted for this name because it falls in line more closely with Stantler's Japanese name, Odoshishi, which comes from the Shishi Odoshi, which is basically a Japanese scarecrow but for deer. For whatever reason though, Nintendo of America decided to go with Stantler instead. Stantler has always been a Pokemon that could be cool, but suffers a little too much from blandness, and unfortunately, it looks like its name seems to have followed that trend as well. Another Gen 2 Pokemon is Scizor, and the interesting thing about its name is that its beta Japanese name essentially became its official English name. Scizor's final Japanese name is Hassam, which comes from a word meaning to clip or snip. However, Scizor's Japanese name in the Gold and Silver 1997 beta demo was Shizasu, which translates simply as scissors, which is literally Scizor's name just without the S at the end and with a Z added for extra coolness, which overall is a pretty interesting coincidence. Another really cool instance of an almost different name comes once again from an interview with Nob Ogasawara. In this interview, Nob revealed that he originally had some different ideas in mind for the names of Vulpix and Ninetales. He originally wanted to name Ninetales as Vulpix and Vulpix as VulpV. Nob picked these names because the last 2 letters of each name are Roman numerals that would have signified how many tails each Pokemon has, with the VI from VulpV being the Roman numeral for 6, which is how many tails Vulpix has, and the same goes for the IX in Vulpix being representative of Ninetales' 9 tails. This right here is the kind of creative ingenious that I love Pokemon for, so it's a darn shame that Nob's idea was seemingly rejected. I do like Vulpix and Ninetales personally, but I would have liked them so much more if these had been their actual names. Now we're going to get into a category that gives us a glimpse at a very dark potential future for Pokemon that was thankfully avoided, and this has to do with the early English names of a lot of the Gen 1 Pokemon. When Pokemon was on its way to the US and was getting ready to release in English for the first time, some promotional materials made their way out to the public, and an image of one promotional poster in particular, which showcases many of the Kanto Pokemon, lists them with names that are far different than what they ended up becoming, and are far worse as well. I will only be going over a few of the highlights in this video, but those include Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff originally being named Pudding and Custard, which, I mean, is sort of fitting in a weird way, I guess, but is also terrible at the same time. Meanwhile, Machop, Machoke, and Machamp were going to be named Karate, Kung Fu, and Judo, respectively, which are all laughably basic and extremely uncreative. Arceus, please help us. Lickitung was originally going to be known as Tongue-Tied, with a slightly different spelling to the standard phrase, which, yeah, pretty much carries that same sentiment as well. Coughing and Wheezing, meanwhile, were originally going to be called Nai and La, or more specifically, NY and LA, which would have been a reference to, and a not so subtle shot fired at, the pollution in New York and Los Angeles in America. And while it still seems kinda uncreative, the names coughing and wheezing aren't really much better, let's be honest, so I probably wouldn't have minded these names, honestly. Back to the terrible territory though, Ammonite and Amistar were going to be named S and Cargo because, well, you know, snails, in case you couldn't figure that one out on your own, and a similar thing also occurred with the other set of fossil Pokemon in Kanto, Kabuto and Kabutops, who were going to be called At and Lantis. Truly a masterpiece of creative media, I know. You can also see some of the other Pokemon's names on this poster on screen as well, and I think we can all breathe a big sigh of relief that these didn't happen. In a recent video, I talked about how Nintendo of America almost completely ruined Pokemon with their localization ideas, which included wanting to redesign all of the Pokemon and change the art style to a more graffiti-inspired look, which thankfully Game Freak did not allow. As such, I have a sneaking suspicion that these names all come from them as well, before Nob Ogasawara ultimately came in to save the day with his translations. That is just a theory on my end, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it were true, given how inept we've learned that Nintendo of America was with Pokemon back in the day. And to round us off, we have another revelation from Nob Ogasawara, and this is another one where the rejected name is arguably better than the official one. I recently mentioned this in another video as well, but in another interview, Nob stated he originally wanted to name Spiritomb as Phantomb instead, but Nintendo of America once again went with something else. This one is so similar to the official name, so it's not really that big of a loss, but it is still cool to learn about other ideas that were suggested for these Pokemon's names that ultimately didn't happen. So there you have it. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content because it really does help out. And check out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify as well as my Pokemon Cardinal series here on YouTube if you would like to support the channel further because it really makes a huge difference and is sincerely appreciated. With that said, I will see you guys soon with another video. I love you all, and until then, as always, I will smell you guys later.